Hey everybody, this is Peter. In this video segment, we're going to configure network critical taps in breakout mode. Before we actually get into the technical aspect of this video, I wanted to kind of give you a background on breakout mode with regard to network critical taps. Only because a lot of people that actually know what taps are don't know the different modes you can configure them in, and then a lot of people don't know what taps are in the first place. So I think a little background is a good idea. So let's look at our diagram on the bottom. You'll see 4 ports. They're paired up, and you'll see ports A, B, C, and D. Okay, essentially a tap is placed in line. Okay, so in front of your firewall, behind your firewall, in front of a group of servers, whatever it may be, it's placed in line. So essentially, you're going to plug in port A into your firewall, plug port B back into your core switch or whatever it may be. Okay, so breakout mode allows you to basically say any traffic that port A receives and transmits to B, we want to send a copy of that traffic to port C. And C and D here are deemed monitored ports. So essentially what you're doing is saying any traffic from A to B, send a copy of that traffic to C, and C's a monitoring port. Now you can tell port C to send that traffic over to a third-party device, whether it's an IDS system or a SIM or whatever it may be that you use to actually analyze traffic on your network. Okay, and the same goes for port D. But in that case, any traffic that port B sees and transmits to A gets sent over to D. Okay, and D's another monitoring port. Now, why would you do this? Well, breakout mode essentially says, like the slide says, right? Specific directional streams in this case, and sending each to a dedicated monitoring port is ensured that neither the live or the monitoring ports become oversubscribed. So basically, what it's doing, as opposed to other versions or other methods of configuring, I guess, taps, it's basically saying whatever traffic you pass to one port will go onto a monitoring port, and you won't oversubscribe or basically kill the port, or latency is basically what I'm trying to get at. There's not too much latency, drop packets, so on and so on. So breakout mode essentially allows you to do that. Aggregation mode does something totally different. We'll have a video on that for you shortly. So first thing I want to do here is actually get onto the box and show you how to configure breakout mode. So first thing we're going to do is log onto the box, right? The default IP of a network critical is 192.168.254.100, and you'll see that on the top of our secure CRT session there. We're logged onto the box with the default username and password of admin, and you'll see that we're at a spot here that says controller. So the first thing I want to do is actually show the current system status. So we'll type in show system, and in this case you'll see the IP address, the subnet mask, the gateway, whether or not we have HTTP, TFTP, and so on turned on. But you'll see on the bottom there the 4 different slots we have: 01, 02, 03, and 04. And currently, by default, are configured for tap 2. What does that mean? Tap 2 essentially means that the network critical box by default sets all of its slots in aggregation mode. Okay, I'm not going to get into the specifics of aggregation mode in this video, but that's essentially what it's doing. So what we want to do is change that. Okay, so let's actually go in here and start to configure slot 1 slowly. Alright, so we're going to set the device, and we're going to change the name of the device to tap.theacademy.ca. So before we actually get into each slot and configure them, let's put some settings on the box, some initial setup. So we'll set the IP address to 10.10.10.7. Okay, so we'll change it from 192.168.254.100. We're going to go ahead and set the gateway as well. And we'll set the gateway to 10.10.10.1. Alright, so we've got the initial setup, we've changed the IP of the box, and we've set a name on the box as well. Now we can actually go in and configure breakout mode. So first thing I want to do is select slot 1. Alright, slot 1 is essentially the first slot that we're going to configure. And what do I mean by slot 1, guys? If you think back to the picture that you saw at the beginning, ports A, B, C, and D, that's one slot. Okay, slot 2 is A, B, C, and D, and slot 3 again and again and again. Okay, so just so you guys understand that that's what the slot means. Slot does not mean slot 1 means port A. Okay, so let's go in to slot 1 here and show our current config. So type in show config, and you'll see in here, right, ports A and B copper, ports C and D copper, ports A and B link lock disabled, so on and so on, right? Nothing special, right? Default type settings. Let's go ahead and do some custom config to slot 1. So let's show, oh, just typo, one sec guys. Let's show our current mapping of ports. So when you actually look at this, you'll see now, like I mentioned before, tap 1 does mean aggregation mode, and you'll see when we do a show map, you'll see that it says aggregating tap mode, no bidirectional, port traffic map. So anything from port A to B, C and D will both receive, and everything from port B and A, or from B and A to A, port C and D will see as well. Okay? Alright, so we want to change that essentially to say A and B go to C, B and A go to D. Okay, so let's go ahead. We'll type in set tap 1. Now, when we set tap 1, you'll see right away, just by typing that in, we're in breakout tap mode. That's all you have to do. You don't have to do any crazy config stuff. Essentially, the network critical knows that if you type in set tap 1 on a specific slot like we just did, it just changed that specific slot from aggregation mode excuse me, to breakout tap mode. Okay, and you'll see the actual port traffic map now. You'll look at A, so any traffic going from A to B, monitor or set to or copy and send to C. And again, B to A, send to D, just like we actually outlined in the first slide of this video. All right, so let's go ahead and set the device name here, and we're going to change that to tap 1. So the device name is set now to tap 1. And we're going to go ahead and select slot 2 now, and you'll see the same thing with slot 2, guys. So this is going to be a little repetitive, but it's actually a good thing if you're actually configuring these and watching this video. You'll see how easy it is. So we'll set the device name here first as opposed to last to tap 2, and we'll set tap 1 for this specific slot. So now that we're in slot 2, set tap 1, we're in breakout mode, nice and easy. All right, so we can now go in and say select excuse me, select slot 3, and come in and do the same. We can set the device name to tap 3, and then we can actually come in here and type in set tap 1 again, and you'll see we're into breakout mode. You'll see our port traffic map, same idea as we did in slot 1 and 2. Let's select slot 4, and again let's set the device name to tap 4. So basically we're just doing this to kind of give it a more realistic name for us, so we remember what we've named our actual slots. And then we're going to go ahead and type set tap 1, and there you go. So it's done the same thing. So now all 4 slots on this specific network critical device have been set properly to breakout mode. Okay, and again we've discussed what breakout mode is. So we're going to type select controller, which brings us back basically to our global settings, and we'll type show system now. Now you'll see that the old IP address is still in here, and that's because we haven't saved the configuration yet. Okay, but you will see though that down below slots 1 all the way through 4 are now set to tap 1, which essentially means breakout mode. So those settings take place right away. But the IP address changes, you actually have to come in and type in save in order for that to take place. So why don't we go ahead and do that so we can actually save this configuration. And we'll press enter. And that's it, guys. The configuration saved, and that's how you set up breakout mode on a network critical tap. Thanks very much for coming out. We'll definitely see you in the next one.